SkillStruct presents.
Cool. Okay. So just to summarize for the two that weren't here last time. So as everyone said, we learned about what I do as a business, which I will highlight a little bit later on as we talk about a bit more about entrepreneurship. We also talked about the module and the assignments and things like that. So that's essentially what we've done. So you didn't miss a whole lot, but hopefully you'll catch up as you kind of progress. And if you do have any specific questions, I'm always up for a conversation. That's not just for the two people that weren't here last week, but for everyone in general. Okay, so I always say make sure you do take note because it's very important. Yes, this is being recorded and you'll be able to recap, but there might be certain things that pertain to you. So if you have, a piece of paper or whatnot, I definitely recommend you write one. So an entrepreneur definition that I like to give is someone who uses creativity, innovation to meet customers' needs or aspirations. So an entrepreneur, and there's a difference between enterprise and entrepreneurship, which we're going to get into, but someone who's an entrepreneur is somebody ultimately that creates a purpose that serves customers, because as much as you're an entrepreneur taking risks, all those risks are in order to benefit your goal, which is to ultimately make some revenue, or maybe you have a purpose driven one, but in order to, be an entrepreneur, you need to have a customer demographic. You need to have a target audience. So last week we were discussing if you were to have a business, what would that be? Everything that everyone said had the common goal of ultimately trying to serve a customer's need. It was based on interest sometimes it was just based purely on making money, but everyone had the goal of meeting a customer need. So as a business, I have twofold. So for me as a business, my target is companies that need digital upskilling or companies that need some training when it comes to tech, but also, is that the door? Okay, if you can help me out. So, but also I have a other thing through SkillStruct University where my target audience is young people. And for me having young people, that means involving myself with universities, involving myself with schools as well, and also academia. So for example, my target audience could be anyone from your age up to 30 years old, really, because from a SkillStruct University point of view, I have goals in terms of helping when it comes to career development, also upskilling when it comes to tech as well. So that is the definition of what entrepreneur is. But now I'm asking, I said these are similar. Okay, what is enterprise? Okay, now you're right on the money on that one for sure, definitely. Okay, so when we're talking about enterprise, and you see there is a subtle difference here, is the process of using creativity and innovation to meet customer needs, typically as an organization, a company or business. So that's the main difference really. So when we're talking about, the definition of what an entrepreneur is, typically what that means is somebody who has the same things but might not be a company or entity. But when we're talking about enterprise, so the reason why we're an enterprise is we are a limited company. There are other people who are sole traders, but we have an entity that proves we are an organization normally. So that is the main difference when it comes to what is an entrepreneur and what is enterprise. So some of you might have side hustles, for example. We discussed that last week. Some people do hair, some people are doing babysitting and things like that. That's entrepreneurship. You might not have a company, but when it comes to establishing yourself as a limited company, that is when you become a bit more of an enterprise, really. So that is the main distinction. So try and remember that. We'll talk about it again, no doubt, but that's something as well. So leading on to that, and based on this definition, what would you say enterprise involves? So what would you say, what are the key things that establishing yourself as an enterprise will involve? This time I want to go around the whole class, so I'll give you a minute to think about this, and then I'll reveal some of the key points when it comes to what does an enterprise involve as well. So have a think about it, note it down, and then we'll have a discussion about it. Okay, so I'll give you 1 minute to do that. When we're talking about what does enterprise involve, the first thing is identifying the gaps or an undersupply of something, for example. So can anyone give an example of a good use case where someone identified a gap in the market and was able to create a business from that? Yep, that's a very good one. So yeah, for those, obviously there used to be, I don't know, did you lot ever use Blockbuster? Or are you lot too young for that? Okay. Fair enough. We know what we're talking about. Okay, cool. So there used to be Blockbuster back in the day where we used to go out and like rent, whether it's like films or PS2 back in the day. PS2? Is that? Yeah, okay, cool, cool. All right. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, fine. So like PS2 and stuff like that. I used to go and do that. Netflix were one of the things we could used to laugh and dismiss. But as you know, the internet age kind of grew a little bit and the less need for physical stuff was a thing, that's when Netflix kind of grew and Blockbuster went out of business. So that's a good example of Netflix understanding the market a little bit there and realizing that there is an undersupply of online demand for content, and they were able to grow as a result. And because they were first to market, they were able to grow. And I think they're still the biggest market audience, although there are competition now. But Netflix is a good story and a good example of that. Yeah, and there's other similar ones. I wouldn't say they were first to market, but they definitely capitalized on like a younger audience and streaming. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's true actually. And actually, Discord, you saying that is very relevant because over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to bring someone I work with as well who kind of has started building out our own Discord. And actually, in terms of making sure we keep connected, because I only come in once a week, Discord is something that I've kind of focused on. It's been feedback from young people on my network as well, something that they use a lot. So that is something that we're going to get involved with. But yeah, Discord, actually, yeah, it's a good example. No, you at the back, did you have your hand up? Yeah, no, it's fine. And actually, you saying Vine was an interesting one because I'll probably say Vine were probably like the first to market example because I think before Vine, I don't think many people were. And then obviously TikTok kind of took over, just kind of like when I was talking about competition, as once you're first to market, that's when new opportunities come. And like for Netflix, you've got things like Amazon Prime now coming out of nowhere. You've got Apple Pay or Apple Plus that's actually coming into the woodwork as well. So that's a very important fact as well. Did anyone else have an example they wanted to discuss? Did you kind of Amazon? Yeah. Oh, that's a great example. That's probably the classic example, of course. But that's a good one because they identified a market. They actually didn't. They only started out at books when they realized actually there's a bigger need here for just general delivery and products and just being the first proper global e-commerce essentially. And now they've done so many things. They're into cloud technology, they're into streaming as well. So yeah, Amazon's definitely a good example as well. Perfect. Cool. All right. So definitely identifying a product or identifying something that's under supply is very important to enterprise. So last week when we were talking about what ideas you had, you know, I think we discussed with you, sorry, I don't know your name yet, about the cars and potentially electric cars and things like that. Funny enough, there's actually been something in the news recently that happened yesterday involving electric that maybe you know or not. Okay, so the government at the moment have decided to extend certain targets. So before it was like 2030, people have to use, electric or not diesel essentially. Now it's been extended by 5 years. And so that means, let's say if we were going to go into business like we were discussing last week, that's something we have to factor in now. So that means potentially that might affect our business in a negative way because now people don't have the pressure of having to change their cars quick. So now talking about, selling cars and that demand might go a bit lower. So that's why it's important, like I was talking about last week, just to be aware of things going around, especially if you want to get into entrepreneurship. Me as a business, I have to make sure that I'm in tune with what's happening in schools, what's happening, not just in schools, but also in tech as well, because things change. The pandemic's a good example for us as well. We were doing a lot of things in person, but we had to adjust to do things more on a virtual level. So that's an example of having to actually be aware of what's going on. And that's part and parcel of being an enterprise. Also, what's important, obviously, is creating a product or service. So everyone who talked about their idea or their concept of what business they were going to go into last week had either a product or a service. We're a service organization rather than a product one, for example, because we do a lot of things more to do with workshops, talks, and things like that. Other companies that have been mentioned, Netflix or TikTok or whatever, they provide a product that you use as well. So you need either or of those things. You can have both, but you definitely can't have none of those things. And then finally, the last point is obviously making sure you are a legal entity. That ultimately makes you an enterprise. So in order to establish yourself, you need to make sure you're a limited company. For example, I couldn't work here or actually teach a lot if I wasn't a limited company. purely because we operate as a business and our business is running workshops and things like that. We needed that legal entity when it comes to things like finances and things like that and paying taxes to establish ourselves as a legal entity. Okay, so expanding on what does enterprise involve, let's talk about some of the key skills in enterprise as well. So key skills in enterprise, similarly, I'll give you a couple minutes just to have a think about some of the key skills you need in order to become someone that is an entrepreneur within an enterprise capacity. So again, what are some of the key skills? We've talked about some of them, but some of them we haven't talked about. So again, I'll give you a couple minutes just to have a think about it, and then hopefully we can have a discussion with everyone about it. Cool. The first thing actually that is very important, and most successful enterprises need to have this, is expertise. You need to know what you're talking about. You're going to have to make sure whatever you get into, you understand that business domain. And what I mean by that is, for example, when we're talking about, we're talking about Netflix and stuff like that, they need to know about their market. They need to know about what is a good film, what is that, or they need to know how to gain that knowledge, whether it's through market research, things that are trending, things like that. You need to be an expert in your field. And that is one thing that's very important when you establish an enterprise. You need to know, or at least care about what you're in as well. So if you know about cooking, or the reason why I was highlighting the difference between an entrepreneur and someone who's an enterprise, inspiration is important. I, as an enterprise, have to motivate people, inspire people. For example, as I have a network of young people that I work with, I also have to inspire them as well to motivate people to, highlight what we do as an organization and things like that. So inspiring is definitely something important when it comes to key skill and enterprise. Then we have commitment to work. Everyone can understand this. Pretty simple, right? You've got to make sure that whatever you are getting into, it's hard work. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to paint rose tinted glasses on it. There's a lot of upside to being an entrepreneur, but there's also a lot of downside in terms of the amount of sacrifice sometimes you have to make, also the amount of commitment that you have to make as well. Sometimes it means not going to that party. Sometimes it means, staying in a lot more, giving up weekends and stuff like that. There's a lot of sacrifice there. So you definitely have to be committed to your work. And that's why I always highlight the importance of actually liking what you get into. So I always say to people, go with your interest when it comes to becoming an entrepreneur, because when it comes to being an entrepreneur and working in enterprise, it's something that you should think about long term as opposed to a short term commitment. And maybe if that's something that scares you, maybe being an entrepreneur or working in enterprise isn't really for you. And that's fine as well. Part of this journey might also identify that maybe you're not the entrepreneur you think you are. Maybe you prefer the 9-to-5 grind, and that's perfectly legit, and that's fine as well. And maybe that suits you and you're happy with that. Maybe some people aren't, and they actually do like the hustle and bustle of being an entrepreneur, but understand it definitely does take hard work. So that is something to highlight as well when it comes to the key thing, when it comes to enterprise. And then lastly, as we've been talking about, and a few people already mentioned it, is assessing risk. So again, I'll go back to, the car, used sales car thing that we were talking about before with, sorry, what's your name? Claudia. With Claudia, we were talking about that with electric cars last week. We assessed the risk last week and we thought it was viable. 2030, people have to give up diesel. Now at 2035, again, that means that we have to assess the risk of whether this is still a viable product, or do we have to adjust, or do we think about the long-term gain as well? There might be an election next year, so maybe it'll go back to 2030. There's always things happening and you're constantly assessing risk. So that's something you have to always think about, the for and against. Why should we do this as opposed to doing something else instead? What is viable? These are all the things that happen all the time when you're in business or when you're in enterprise as well. So talking about all these skills, I wonder for you, what is the most important thing here? And again, I'll give you some time to think about it, and then we'll have a general discussion, maybe a light debate on what you think is the most important one. And every answer should be unique because it's for you, what is the most important and also why as well. So again, I'll give you a minute to have a think about that, and then we'll have again a discussion of all these, what is the most important skill? Okay. Yeah, you can.
It's like reading the news. Yeah, you read the news every day. Doesn't matter if That's why you need to read it. He asked a question about the car, and she didn't know. I mean, yeah, but you need to be on top. What did Rishi Sunak say? Oh, I don't think that's TikTok.
So wait, you get your news from Instagram?
So I don't think I get
TikTok, they get the news from TikTok.
I don't have TikTok.
You get it from TikTok?
No, I don't have TikTok.
You don't have
I don't use TikTok. But Instagram Reels.
Mum tells you.
Yeah, if it's important, my dad, my mom, or my brother, lot, they're gonna send it the group chat or like the family group chat. If it's important, you put it up.
Oh, okay. Fair enough, I guess. Yeah, everyone's different. So, yeah, so wait, how do you keep, so you don't keep informed? Apart from coming to school, maybe?
Yeah, I talk to a lot of people in this, so they tell me.
So you don't want to know for yourself though, like if they're lying to you?
No, I'm lazy enough.
Okay, so that's sad. Fine.
So it is,
It is
it actually is.
Yeah, I hope that changes.
I need to change that.
No, especially you guys, this is your last year. Whatever you do, work, university, you need to be reading the news every day. And not only technology, in general.
You don't, shut up.
But I don't feel like every day looking news, like.
Half an hour won't kill you, and you know, maybe
No,
read
I
the
follow
article that.
an account on Instagram, the daytime, they share the
You
news.
follow what?
An account on Instagram, they share the news.
Okay, at least that's something. What is that?
No, it's not too bad. to be honest.
What is that account?
Can I show it to you? I don't know the name, but I can show it to you if you want to. Like they share the news that's happening in the world.
Is it like?
So you are following what people want you to read or know, instead of
No, I read
researching
your
and knowing what you want to. It's interesting, no?
I read it.
Yeah,
If
very
I like
nice.
it, I'll go into it. Like I'll search.
Now you got me interested. Because you're saying he's reading what people want him to.
Yeah, the news
So
is the same
does the
thing.
news.
Yeah,
It's the
so
same
you
thing.
need to have
You get like the newspaper, you're
and
reading
you're
what
right.
the person who
You're
exactly
right.
wants you to
So
read.
that's when you go and see different views from
Yeah,
different
exactly. That's
from
where you
different.
kind of, yeah.
And how are you gonna know who's which one's
You have to make up for yourself
Yeah, that's
ultimately,
what
but it's
But how are you
good
gonna
to.
know which one, like, which, for example, you get like 2, 3 different
Well, they
newspapers,
are. If
Yeah.
you,
each one of them is saying like a different thing. How are you gonna know which one to believe?
and this
That's
is,
where you have to make
this is when
decisions
you
for
do the
yourself.
research.
As long as you've done the
But
research.
imagine if I make a decision for myself and I make the wrong decision. So I'm like spreading fake news.
That's on
If
you.
I tell him, if I tell
But
my
I hope you don't believe it's fake news when you're spreading it.
No, I'm saying, that's what I'm saying. Like, if there's 3 newspapers,
Yeah.
and I'm reading the 3 of them, but like, they share like different information, how am I gonna know which one is right?
You have to make a decision for yourself. You look at the evidence, you say, therefore, I believe this.
so
And
you
then that's
find
what-
out who is the owner of this news, who is the view, what, because the newspaper will have political views. They will have an agenda. So this is up to you to think, oh, these people are very labor, so they try to write this type of article. They're very conservative. These are, you know, like the Sun, they will be very, how do you call it, tabloids. And it's a different, I don't know, you have to.
Make a decision. Yeah, no. I mean, simple example, right? When it comes to fashion or whatnot, you lot might be influenced by influencers, quote unquote, that exist in the demographic, right? So, are you influenced by influencers, or do you feel like, you know, you're wearing Nikes, for example, because you think Nikes are actually cool? Like, you've got to think about it. At some point, you're gonna either make decisions for yourself,
Yeah, it
or,
makes sense, but
yeah. I mean, just at the end of it, like,
This guy is Brazilian, yeah.
okay.
And in Brazil today, it's happening like, I don't know, like, it's basically a heat wave there that's gonna be hot, like, as ever. Like, I don't know how to explain that, but this guy is Brazilian and he doesn't know.
why am I supposed to know that? I'm not there.
But you're Brazilian, you should care about your family there. They're gonna be like boiling inside the house.
You've got AC in the house.
Okay. That's quite a micro
He
example.
doesn't
but
know nothing like at all about news. I
okay.
just noticed now.
I mean, I think generally, you know, for the class, because I know we're going off tangent, it's good to be informed and be able to make decisions for yourself. I think the reality of life is you're going to be hearing a lot. Even some of the stuff I'm saying, maybe you want to do your own research, and that's perfectly fine because, like I say, you know, I can't be there for you physically when it comes to you deciding what you're going to do as a business, how you approach the assignments that we're going to do. At some point, there's going to be a process of I'm telling you something, and you're either going to internalize it and learn from it, or you're not, and you're just going to move on, and that's just the fact of life.
For the most part, it's commitment to work versus expertise is 1 and 2. If we had to, amalgamate your responses, it'll probably be 1 and 2. So again, just out of these two then, so expertise, commitment to work, only focusing on that, who thinks it's expertise out of those two? Oh, just one person now. Okay. How did this happen? Okay. So commitment to, sorry, what? You say, okay, so 2 people, I think. And then commitment to work. Okay, so there has been a shift or sea change. Now commitment to work is really interesting. Okay, so commitment to work, and I think personally there's no right or wrong answer. I think it depends on the circumstance, but obviously there's going to be times where you essentially need everything here. But when it comes to important skill, you might start off with expertise, or you might just start with commitment to work and then get the expertise you need. So let's say you have the hard work to, be a business person. Maybe you need expertise. Maybe that means you have to assess risk. And then as you grow your business, you have to inspire. So there are some orders here. Normally, naturally, there has to be a commitment to it, I would say. Then you need expertise. Then you have to assess the risk of creating a business. And then as you grow and hire more people, inspiration. So that's how I would personally rank it. Does anyone have a different ranking to that? So like I say, I would say you probably need commitment to work first. You then need some expertise. You then need to assess the risk and then inspire. Anyone agree with that? Okay. I would note that down for future reference, just in case stuff comes up. But yes, so again, commitment to work, expertise, assessing risk, inspire. All right, cool. All right, so I'll give you a second to do that before I move on. Cool. All right, so now for the benefit, especially for those who weren't here last week, I'm just going to recap into the next activity, a bit about what we do, but also lead into the next phase. So when we're talking about enterprise, obviously us being an organization is an example of that. And last week I touched on what we do as a business, which is essentially working as a tech consultancy firm, going to companies, teaching workshops, but also we have a social enterprise arm of what we do with our network SkillStruct University, where we cater to more of a younger audience actually. And so we have different customer needs. So like I say, for the business side of things, some businesses need young people from a recruitment point of view. And so that's where we help them. Some people need some workshops when it comes to hackathons or when it comes to talking about data science or things like that. That's where we come in as well. So we have that front, but then also, which is what most people focused on last week, is what we do with SkillStruct University. So helping people when it comes to deciding maybe what they want to do for a career, for example, or thinking about, oh, I need to refine my CV, or I need to become more employable. How do I do that? These are the kind of things that, we do as an organization. So that's how we as an organization try to meet people's needs from the corporate standpoint, but also from the non-corporate standpoint, which is what I'm doing here today, talking to you lot. So I've got an example of it. It's a video and it's to do with mentoring. And so what I want you to do in this next activity, this video is probably 5 minutes long. I want you to note down as you are hearing this testimonial. You know what a testimonial is, right? Cool. All right. As you're hearing this testimonial about this person's experience, about being involved in mentoring, how does this show, again, that we are fulfilling our obligation as an enterprise? What are we doing here, or what has been shown or demonstrated to make sure, again, let me just go back to what an enterprise is. How are we conveying, we are an enterprise again? So that's what I'm looking for in this video. So as this video is being played, do take note of it. What are we doing to fulfill, specifically around what we do with SkillStruct University, that enterprise definition, okay? So say it's about 5-6 minutes long, and I'll just let the video play. Actually, before I start, everyone have pen and paper?
Everyone.
Cool. All right, so let's go.
Hey everyone, Michael from SkillStruct here, and I'm really excited to show you this next video. This video, as you can see from the title, is a mentoring piece where We reflect on last year's SkillStruct University mentoring program with one mentor called Samantha and another mentee called James, where they give their thoughts on the process and how it changed them for the better, and hopefully the future mentors for the SkillStruct University program, yes, potentially you. If you're considering being a mentor of our program, then wait till the end and we'll explain more on how to do so. So without further ado, let's see how our mentor Samantha and our mentee James got on in last year's SkillStruct University mentoring program of 2021.
I'll probably have to say having the opportunity to just see an in-depth analysis of how software engineers work on a day-to-day basis, get an understanding of the technology they're currently using, and then get advice on what type of technology I should be looking into and trying to like craft myself like a more desirable employee. So like when people are looking to hire me, like a more desirable candidate. I'll probably say just having an opportunity to learn that.
I think for me, seeing the advice that I've given to my mentee and the fact that they implemented and the benefits that it brought to them. So, for example, discussing the power of the network, not just building your own existing network out, but meeting new people in fields that you're interested in and the benefits that that can bring. So, yeah, that was definitely, a good highlight for me.
I'll probably just say most surprising was how much my mindset changed within the whole process. Because at the start, like I didn't know what I was getting into, but as I went more and more into it, the mindset I was facing when looking at company, I started looking at companies more like, okay, I have to think about this long term now. So when I'm working for this company, do their ethics align with mine? Am I actually going to fit in? Is my culture the right fit for this company? And then just what skills do I bring to this company as well? And then with that, it just gave me more motivation to gain more experience, like get more qualifications. So I'll give you an example. So an opportunity came up where I'll be able to get an Azure cloud certificate. So I just did some research and then take a test and then you get certified. And normally I wouldn't have done that, but obviously after doing the mentoring and speaking to my mentor, and then hearing it just say, take opportunities, just work harder, and it just motivated me, pushed me to just take an opportunity and get a certification.
But obviously, my role is HR, like benefits, and the young person that I was paired with wasn't in the HR world. So I did have some reservations about, how it would work. Would they get enough from me? Would they, feel like it was a good experience? Could I impart enough knowledge that would help them? And I'm very pleased to say that I came away feeling like that was the case. I wasn't too sure at first, but I definitely do feel like now it's really regardless of industry that you work in, right? The things that we learn in the corporate world can be applied, so the corporate HR world can be applied in any space. So that's a pleasant surprise for me.
It would be possible to just get a day-to-day perspective of what software engineer does. So she managed to connect me with someone who's been in the industry for quite a long time, and they just spoke to it. They gave a presentation, and then I managed to ask questions I wanted to, and then I felt quite satisfied, and I knew like what I was getting into now. Like I knew like okay, once I become a software engineer, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing.
I feel like when I was much younger, I would have benefited from a mentor. I mean, I have one now, and I go to him with a ton of questions all the time because there are various points in your career where you may not be sure about things in terms of, maybe you want to take a new career direction, or maybe there's a difficult conversation you want to have at work and you're not quite sure how to approach it. A mentor is somebody that you can leverage from in terms of their experience, and if they can't help, then they'll probably know somebody else who can help you. But I think when you're younger, it's important because it gives you perspective into a world that you've probably not entered into before. There are questions that you might have again about how you conduct yourself or the practice in the working world. So just having somebody that you can bounce ideas off and questions that will make your transition into your world of work or chosen industry much more smoother. So yeah, definitely feel that it's important, and any age, you can have a mentor at any age.
I'll probably say mentoring is important because it gives you an opportunity to ask questions you've always had, but also be told things you never thought of. So something like with me, when I enlisted, when I was looking for jobs, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna apply everywhere. And then I didn't really consider like where I was like, okay, as long as I just become a software engineer. But now when I look at the company, I've got to think about, okay, how are my actions in that company going to impact the world as a whole around me? So speaking to my mentor, I got that opportunity, and then just how am I going to navigate working within this industry as a minority as well? That's one thing I really appreciate working within SkillStruct and having an opportunity to mentor. Probably say it's just an opportunity to grow. That's what I would have to say. It just gives you it's a perfect opportunity. It doesn't hurt. You're gonna learn something new at the end of the day. You're gonna come out with something new, and I feel as if it will help you when you're planning your career path.
No, I just think it's been a wonderful experience, and I hope I get approached to do it for year 2. Right? For me personally, there was an element of reverse mentoring there as well that I really appreciated. It wasn't intentional, but yeah, I definitely got a lot of value from it myself as well, and I learned things, as I mentioned before, we're from totally different industries, but I learned more about the tech space than I have done in a long time. So yeah, definitely a great experience for me.
Alright, so there you have it. That was James and Samantha's story about their experience on the SkillStruct University Mentoring Program of 2021. But if you're thinking, I want to be a mentor too, well, think no further. All you have to do is register your interest. And you do that by going to www.skillstruct.com/contact us. Just fill out your information there, fill out a message by saying, I've just seen this really great video about mentoring members of the SkillStruct University Network, and I want to be a mentor too. Simple as that, and then one of the team will reach out to you, and then we'll begin the process of onboarding you, and hopefully you can equally impact members of the SkillStruct University Network, just like Samantha did. But that's it for this video. SkillStruct. Okay, so some really fantastic news. Since filming and shortly after our program, we found out that James got offered a placement opportunity as a software engineer, placement intern at Nike in Amsterdam. So we wish him safe travels and all the best as he continues his journey as a software engineer. And people, this is it. This time I mean it. SkillStruct.
This is a SkillStruct presentation. If you like what you hear and see, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, so first of all, just want to say that person, Samantha, is at some point going to be involved in what I'm doing here. So potentially she might be the first guest lecturer, which I want to do some lecture talks, guest speakers. So I guess you both missed out because you weren't here. I want to bring people in the industry here as well. So she's going to play a role. And we're talking about Discord as well. So potentially, you know, through connecting on Discord, I'll probably have someone who's a technical person from a programming point of view. So it could be a software developer or someone that's more career based and actually start to engage a lot on there from a mentoring point of view. But also just to say this video is based on, you know, like I say, a good example of a testimonial with the benefit of mentoring, but also what we do as a business. Before I move on to the next slide and the question, does anyone have any questions on what you just saw? Okay, so leading on that, I want you to actually write a paragraph this time, I know, but based on the notes you took, answer this question. So how did the previous video show SkillStruct as an enterprise?
This is a SkillStruct presentation. If you like what you hear and see, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.